Today down in the comments, I want to know, what is your favorite way to watch a film, especially the first time? Would you rather be in a theater? Would you rather be at home? Would you rather you be in a theater with a lot of people? Or have the theater kind of to yourself? I think these things all impact the way we watch movies and think about movies, and I'm just interested in what you guys think. Hello, I'm Adam Cesare. This is Project Black T-Shirt, the channel where we take a new release or a reissue horror movie and then pair it with a piece of horror literature, a book, a short story, a comic, something that you will like to read if you like that movie. Be sure to like this channel and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Last night I got to see a special advance, a couple days advance screening of Us, the new film from Jordan Peele, the writer, director, producer of Get Out, has written, directed, and produced another film. This one much more firmly in the horror genre. With Get Out, there was a lot of debate, like, is it a horror film? Is it a social thriller? Is it a this, that, and the other thing? Us is 110% a horror film, but it definitely does cross its genres in certain ways, so we're going to talk about that now. What I'll say right up at the top is I call this a non-spoiler review. This is a spoiler-free review. I'm really only going to be talking about plot stuff that happens within the first act, and I'll try to keep that that vague. I will say, if you're watching this and it comes out this weekend, or if you're watching this and you still haven't seen it yet, and you're at all interested in seeing Us, I think a lot of the movie hinges on knowing very little about kind of later plot developments. If you're at all interested, go see it. Go see the film. Even if you don't like it, I think you'll be happy that you saw it unspoiled, or as unspoiled as you can be. So real quickly, the plot, as much of the plot as we want to get into, movie opens up in 1986, a little girl at the Santa Monica Pier, and then we flash forward to the present, where that same little girl has grown up, and she's Lupita Nyong'o, who plays the matriarch of this family that has rented a summer house. They have a summer home. They're there for a little while with their two kids, a boy and a girl. There's some real resistance when the husband, Winston Duke, wants to bring the kids to the beach. Like, oh, it's fun beach time. We know something dramatic happened to Lupita Nyong'o when she was a little girl at that beach. She doesn't want to go. She's getting like a real bad feeling about going to the beach. Family comes back. They're at the summer home, and they start to go to bed. And she's having the real misgivings about it. She's like, wants to cut the vacation short. Let's get out of here. And one of the kids comes in and tells her parents, like, there's a family outside. There's a family standing outside in the middle of the night outside our house. And then the movie basically becomes, for a little bit at least, a home invasion thriller, where you have a kind of perfect copy, a perfect mirror image of this family, armed with golden scissors, menacing this family, taking this family hostage. And the film has a really uneasy feeling in the beginning. There is humor. There's humor throughout the film. An enormous amount of humor that I think the marketing kind of really does its best to hide, and I think that's a smart move, because you really don't realize how much of the movie you're going to be kind of laughing and enjoying, especially for this first 20 minutes, because it's really tense, and you almost get like I was getting the Haneke film, like Funny Games. I was getting like Funny Games vibes of like, geez, how brutal is this gonna be if we're sitting in like a multiplex with a packed house and people are ready to kind of enjoy themselves, and like, how dark is this movie gonna get? And that's something that the movie does incredibly well. It's like filled with a lot of dread, a lot of like terrible things are gonna happen. The family has cute little kids. Shahadi, Wright Joseph, and Evan Alex play the two kids. And I think in a movie like this, where you have child actors in the movie for such a large amount of the runtime, especially playing two roles, they have to be good. And this movie the cast is exceptional, but the kids are especially good. There's the first shot of the movie, and I think it's the first shot of the movie, maybe it's not, but the first shot of the movie is in 1986, is a shot of a television. You're watching a series of commercials on the television, and some of them are kind of like red herrings, and some of them have to do really spot on with the plot. The wings of the TV, the set next to the console is like a stack of VHS tapes on each side, and there's The Right Stuff, Chud, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Goonies. There's a few other things that I can't really remember right now, but there's like this eclectic mix of films that may or may not end up being like influences or hints as to what is gonna happen and what's gonna be going on in the movie you're watching. usually I kind of like the Stranger Things phenomena of like throwback stuff and like and full of like references and like being really cheeky with your references. Like the kid wears a Jaws shirt where they're going to the beach and there's kind of like this you know, the scene where Chief Brody, like you get the zoom in on his face, like where your kid disappears. You get almost like a fake out scare like that. So for that first 10 minutes where the film is full of these little references, I was like, I don't know that I'm vibing with this. This seems a little on the nose. But I think Peele's like real mastery and real genius comes in, whereas how he sets all that stuff up, and then some of it he completely disregards, some of it he completely indulges in, some of it he really like subverts. Like you were expecting one thing because you saw a Nightmare on Elm Street tape, or you were expecting one thing because you saw a Chud tape, and then you get something completely different by the end of the movie. I think the movie is, in that way, just an incredible triumph. I've had a lot of people asking, even just in the 12 hours since I saw the movie, I posted last night that I was going, and a lot of people were like, oh, is it better than Get Out, or how does it compare to Get Out? Which, I understand why you'd ask, why you'd want to know, but after seeing Us, I think they're just completely different movies. Get Out was a movie, and here's where me asking you about theater experiences kind of ties into this, but Get Out was a movie that saw opening night. My buddy and I were actually going to go sell books at a convention, so we were there in like the outskirts of Boston. Opening night, a late show with like a really anemic crowd. There were maybe like 5 or 10 people in the crowd, and it was a movie I very much enjoyed. And it's a movie that I think is like, especially when you look back on it in retrospect and look at how it's constructed and the different levels the film works on and the different levels of commentary that the film presents pretty succinctly and pretty upfront with its themes and its messaging. It's not that it's a simple film, but it's not that it's necessarily a hard film to kind of digest and pick apart. It kind of invites that, Get Out. And that theater was just like, you know, a couple laughs, couple hoots, couple like jumps with the film, but it wasn't at all like a packed house like I had last night for Us. And this movie plays like gangbusters with a full crowd. People, because it's that mix of laughter and screams and jump scares and the tiniest bit of gore. It's not a gory film, but comparatively to Get Out, it's basically, I mean, compared to Get Out, it's basically a slasher because it does have like a high body count, and it does have a lot of just very visceral, like beating the hell out of each other with different household implements. But it's just a movie that so works on the visceral kind of thrill ride level when you're in it and when you're watching it with a crowd. And it's hard for me to even like immediately after the credits rolled, and it's a movie that goes some weird, confusing, very unexpected places. And I immediately turned to my friends after we were done watching it, and there's all these different references, like I said in the beginning, to all these different great genre films. And the one that you kind of don't get a reference point to, or you don't get a deliberate, overt one, is Phantasm in the Phantasm series, or the works of like the kind of magical realist works of Clive Barker. And I know that Peele is producing another Candyman film, so it makes, when you watch Us, you're gonna be like, oh, that makes complete sense why he would be drawn to Candyman, why he would be drawn to the work of Clive Barker, why I'm guessing he's a fan of Don Coscarelli, because this film goes some really interesting places in the back end. And I will say, it's a movie that I really, really liked, and I'm still thinking about 12 hours afterwards, and there's definitely, it's filled with the politically charged imagery and politically charged subtext, and it's thematically dense, I think, to the point where it's almost like got so much in it that it's almost got like this Shaggy Dog quality to it. It's definitely not as like efficient as a movie as Get Out, where everything kind of so neatly comes together and everything completely makes sense once you have things kind of explained to you what's going on. Us is a movie that doesn't quite gel there at the end, even though it has these like explainer scenes. But I don't think it's meant to. I think it's definitely meant to be a little bit more oblique, a little bit more of an ambiguous film, dealing with the faces we present as Americans versus almost nature nurture and what we could be or what we have the capacity to be under all different sets of circumstances. And it's a great heady film in that way. The one thing I started saying, the one thing that didn't 100% work for me, and I'm gonna have to think about it and look back on next viewings, because it is a movie that I think I'm gonna see again. There's a couple scenes towards the end where you have these explainer sequences where you have like flashbacks and flash forwards and things that really spell certain things out in the plot, which you don't really get in films like this. As the Phantasm films progress, there is like more of a continuity, and there is more of an attempt by the filmmakers to kind of explain the dream logic of like the first one. And you kind of get that a little bit at the end of this. And I'm not sure it 100% works, even though the performers are all great. Lupita Nyong'o like shares a lot of scenes with herself, and she's like unbelievably good. Elizabeth Moss and Tim Heidecker play kind of more minor characters, but they kind of partly stole the show from me. I do somewhat appreciate how explicit certain things are made. So when you're talking about this movie with your friends, you're able to just kind of work back from the text and be like, well, you know, there's clear evidence here of this and this and this, which really doesn't make sense unless you've seen the film. But trying my best not to spoil it. And I know in some ways Get Out was a divisive film. I don't know why. I think it was mostly among horror fans being like, well, it's not a real horror movie. I think that's a really myopic and really kind of dumb argument to make, especially because you're not engaging with the film on its own merits. But if you have that kind of problem with Get Out, you're definitely not going to have it with us, because there's several kind of gags and just straight horror set pieces that are just awesome in the movie. The whole movie looks amazing. It's directed to the nines. It's performed to the nines. The cinematography is beautiful. It's got a real pretty look to the movie, and everything just comes together really, really nicely. The music's awesome. Not only the score, which is really beautiful and again Candyman-esque, but the needle drops are just there's some that are pure laughs, and then there's some that are really evocative and really good use of music in the film. This week's book recommendation, and I'm really glad I just finished with this book, but ties in perfectly to us in a kind of unexpected ways. But it's called Baby Teeth by José Stage. I hope I'm saying her first name correctly, but it's José Stage, Baby Teeth. This is a novel that's a debut author, made a lot of people's kind of lists at the end of last year, or made quite a splash on like Twitter, and people were really enjoying it. And I picked it up just because people really seemed to like it. So I didn't know anything about it, but it turns out it is it's an evil kid story. It's like a killer kid story, told from the alternating perspectives of the mother and the kid. She's about 4 years old. We kind of go back and forth between the mother, who's figuring out that her child has like sociopathic tendencies. Her child doesn't talk. She's kind of speech delayed, and the husband and the mother are trying to figure out like what's going on. Why is she like this? Why does she do certain things? Why does she act like a different kid when she's alone with the mother? When she's like with the father, we get from the little girl's perspective that she's kind of like in love with her dad, and she hates bad mommy. This back and forth that builds and builds and builds, and it's unique in killer kid literature, I guess, if you want to use, for lack of a better term, in that to me it's much less The Omen, and much more like We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's much more literary approach to that kind of story. The first half of it, I think the first half is stellar. To me, it does peter a little bit, and it's still the book recommendation for this episode. I think it's very much worth reading, very much worth picking up. But the first half of it is just so uncomfortable, and so like this kid's like thinking things that are like a kid shouldn't be thinking, and they're going about things in a way that it is a horror novel. It is I guess technically like literary horror, kind of more like the Paul Tremblay side of the spectrum than it is like gutter B-movie horror like I write. It does feel very like psychologically real. It feels very uncomfortably real. Like this could happen. It's some of the stuff that happens where the kid switches off being good in front of the dad and bad in front of the mom feels a little bit like Michigan J. Frog. But like for the most part, the way that the child chapters are written is so uncomfortable to me and so creepy. And the book really, like, especially in that first half, is like really like fires on all cylinders. I'm Adam Cesare. This has been Project Black T-shirt. If you want to find out more about me, more about my books, I write novels, novellas, sometimes the occasional screenplay and comic book if they let me. But I'm Adam Cesare. You can go find the link down below to join my mailing list. I'll send you a free couple short stories. I'll send you a free novel sample. And I hope you check out my stuff. I got ebooks, paperbacks, audiobooks if you don't have time to read. It's great talking to you, and I guess I'll see you next week.